Here's a question. We have got a question, Finn, haven't we? Is there a more effective alternative to prison? Is there a more effective alternative to prison? I mean, we've talked about this one a lot. It's as old as probably the idea of the penal system itself. That some people go to jail. It's right they go to jail. They are violent, horrible offenders, and it would be very, very dangerous for them not to be in jail. Then there's another tier of prisoners, you know, your toe rags and your scroats that are in and out all the time, where it's also, remember, it acts as a punishment as well. You're not meant to be punished while you're there. The notion, the idea of being in prison, your loss of freedom, is the punishment. But that ain't going to work if you just simply shoved into a holding pen for half an hour and then released again, only to return a few weeks later when you've committed yet another crime. It's doing nothing, really. You have things like financial fraud. Now, I don't want rich old duffers from the city who carry out a moody transaction and trouser a few $100 grand in the process to suddenly go, well, we can do this because you don't get imprisoned because we're posh criminals. We can just have a tag and a curfew and still sit at home enjoying meals with our family and inhaling copious amounts of Peruvian marching powder, as is our thing. So that wouldn't be fair either. But there has to be, I'm pretty sure there's common agreement here, that prison doesn't work for all crimes. But what is the alternative to that? It's a bit like, and hear me out on this, it's a bit like, what is the alternative to a parking ticket? Now, you get a parking ticket, we all moan that, you know, 60 quid because I parked on the wrong coloured paint, or 60 quid because I was 2 minutes over a man-made time of how long I'm allowed to leave my car there. 60 quid. It should be a couple of... Well, if it was a couple of quid, of course, we'd just all break the law, wouldn't we? So that's the reason behind the idea of the... I'm not defending the parking ticket, by the way. Crazy. But that's the thinking behind it. You've got to have something substantial. So if you didn't have prison and it was just a tag and a curfew, I do think there's lots of people that could be tagged and curfewed in a very robust fashion, made to live at a certain address, can't travel for 3 or 4 years. You could expand what the kind of curfew or the T's and C's were within it. That would kind of work. But in terms of an effective alternative, and who do we decide does and doesn't go to prison? And I bring this up, of course, because we've got a huge problem with prisons. They're going to run out of space in 18 months' time, despite the commitment to spend 10 billion quid and provide 14,000 new places. The government has pledged to build 4 prisons, as well as expanding capacity at existing jails as it seeks to provide extra places by 2031. I think I'm right in saying most of this stuff was already penciled in under the previous government, so it's a bit like Boris Johnson's "we'll build more hospitals" thing. When the prison building programme was announced by the Tories in 2021, it was calculated to cost 5.2 billion. It's now expected to cost 10 billion quid, in part because of the impact of planning rules. And they're the rules, of course, that Angela Rayner wants to, if you like, override because of objections. She will step in and say, sorry, your objections are not valid. Under the new laws introduced to tackle prison overcrowding, the Ministry of Justice will bypass councils who normally decide on planning applications, even if the proposed buildings are on green belt land. The thinking is it's too important to just put it to, you know, local politicians or a petition that goes out to the neighbourhood or the community. It's bigger than that and it's more important than that. Notionally, I kind of get that. However, I'm more interested in whether there are better alternatives to prison. Because we can all say, of course you should go to jail. How many times do we discuss people who don't go to jail on this programme? And you think, hang on, child pornography? You didn't go to jail for downloading copious amounts of horrendous child pornography? That doesn't take you to jail? If that doesn't, what else does? And of course, the reason for that is there's so many people who are doing it, they'd be jailing thousands and thousands more than currently are in the prison system. So you have all of these problems, and we can all whinge, they should go, they shouldn't go, why are they in jail, hurty words on Facebook, what are they doing in jail? You know, those kind of conversations, and we all get it. But I think we can all agree when it comes to your basic criminality, is there an alternative to that? If, I don't know, Mick the car thief, who's on his 37th Ford Cortina and can't stop nicking vehicles, I mean, what do you do with him? Presumably, you've tried all the non-custodial stuff before he even gets to jail. There was a case recently where somebody had committed, was it 100 offences? They'd been found guilty. It was over 100. And they'd never gone to jail. But they would have had non-custodial sentences meted out for their grisly crimes, theft or whatever else it happened to be. So that clearly didn't work. So what is the alternative? How do we reason? There's got to be a punishment element to it. There's got to be a public safety element to it. There's got to be a sense that the criminal doesn't want to do it again because what they've just gone through ain't very nice. That's a factor. You owe it, if nothing else, to the next potential victim to ensure that the person guilty of the crime doesn't do it again. That's kind of part of the deal. So what is the alternative?